Now it is time for another edition of We OUTCHEA. And I'm going to bring in producer Kat after I read this question that I gave to you all, where we got lots of responses. Who is the most likely to make the college football playoff before 2027? Who hasn't already? Okay. Now, apparently, producer Kat found 4, and I can't wait to hear who they are. Producer Kat, what are the 4?
Hello, RJ. I just want to say before I get into these 4 that most of the responses to your tweet were teams that you already picked. So they were teams that you already went through in your list. A lot of Texas A&Ms, a lot of Utahs, a lot of USCs. So I tried to pick ones that were not already included in your list. So let me just say that before I read these. So I'm going to start with this one. It's from Dr. Fun. He says, but maybe UCLA or Oregon. The Pac-12 has to get in eventually, right?
You know, those are both possibilities because they're Pac-12 teams and they're not super sorry Pac-12 teams, right? Now, Oregon is interesting because Oregon feels like they should have already done this and accomplished this feat, specifically last year, because with that win over Ohio State at the shoe, they were set up to do it and then just couldn't keep it together. But the change in head coach, we'll see how that goes. They bet on Dan Lanning. They bet on recruiting. We'll see how. I just want to see it, right? You had a generational talent in Kayvon Thibodeau. You had a generational talent in Justin Herbert. It hasn't worked out just yet. UCLA, I got a little bit harder time just seeing it happen because I felt like if UCLA was going to pull it off with Chip Kelly, they would have already done it. But, we'll see where it goes. I can't say I hate the picks, though, especially as I'm the dude that also put Nebraska on this list. Fair?
That's fair. Here's my next one. This is from Josh Harmon. Calling it now, and you can call me a crazy fan, but if Tennessee can keep gaining momentum, it'll be at Vol football.
I'm not going to call you crazy. Look, Josh, number 1, thank you for this. Number 2, producer Kat had the wherewithal to pull this one out of the pile. So I'm just lay this out. Offline, I'm constantly telling producer Kat, I like her balls. I've liked her balls for the past year. I like Josh Heupel. I like the offense they run. I put Hendon Hooker on my list of, long shots to win the Heisman Trophy or contenders that nobody's really thinking about. It can happen. Like, you got enough of the fan base. You got enough tradition. We understand what Tennessee is capable of. I just don't know when Phil Fulmer's going to be right about the balls being back and when they're going to be taking a bite out of anything at all. But I like it. I'd love to see Smokey give Alabama the business. I'd love to see Smokey give it to Georgia. You just got to get a little bit better. It's not crazy. Again, I put Nebraska on this list. I like Tennessee.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is similar to Nebraska in a way that Tennessee football is sports. Like that is what everyone looks forward to. So they are similar in that way. And they're also not very likely of making it in my humble opinion. Here was an interesting one. And this guy gave us 3 teams. Our friend Woo Pig, I wonder who he is a fan of, said Arkansas, Ole Miss, and he also said Tennessee. But I thought the first 2 that he mentioned were interesting.
Well, again, nobody's crazy to shout Tennessee. Again, I put Nebraska on it. I didn't include Ole Miss and Arkansas on my list of 12. And the reason is the tradition part of this conversation. Like, I can point in Nebraska and I can show you national championships. I can show you Heisman Trophy winners. I can show you a consistency in every decade, save the last one, in which they have been good in the case of Nebraska, and Arkansas is able to pull it out there in the end, right? They started really well in 2011 to make sure they got covered through the rest of that decade. And then 2021, they had their best season since 2011. Now, the problem with this is Arkansas has only won 1 national championship, and that was like 60 years ago. But everybody knows that I'm a Sam Pittman dude. You're also playing the SEC West, and A&M is already right there. Now, I know Arkansas beat A&M, and it's still possible, but can Arkansas keep that level of competition up for the rest of the season? They haven't yet. And Ole Miss, same difference, right? I think Ole Miss Arkansas is going to be an outstanding rivalry with Lane Kiffin and Sam Pittman, just like we saw the game last year was outstanding. It's one of the best games of the season. I just got a hard time seeing Ole Miss and or Arkansas getting past Alabama, A&M this year. And LSU is always going to be there because they've got that recruiting base. And we know that, if nothing else, Brian Kelly knows how to build a team that can make the playoff. And one of the ways you're going to have to do that is win the SEC West. It's just a loaded division. That's the problem with it. And that's why it's easier for me to see Tennessee coming over top of Florida and Georgia than it is for me to see Ole Miss, Arkansas coming over the top of Alabama and LSU with any level of consistency. And then again, A&M. And by the way, next year, Oklahoma and Texas are going to be somewhere in this. And while they're not Alabama, right, they're good. You know, they're decent. They're good enough to give you a game. But no, it wouldn't shock me. But again, I just didn't put them on the list because they lack the same sort of pedigree that a Tennessee, that a Nebraska does. That's it.
This is our last one, and this one's I just thought it was fun.
Okay.
It's from our friend Kyle. Wherever Arch Manning decides to go.
Look, as I understand it, we're basically looking at Alabama, right? Perhaps Texas, maybe. I doubt it. Maybe, right? We're looking at LSU. We're looking at Ole Miss. You know, we're looking at SEC school. So I don't think the Clemson's in the mix on this one, guys. Georgia, right? But Nick Saban wants Arch Manning. Now, the thing about that is Nick Saban usually gets who Nick Saban wants. I have a really difficult time believing that Lane Kiffin is going to be able to spit better game than Nick Saban. What's really shocking to me is that Tennessee is nowhere near this. That's preposterous. Like I would have never thought that Peyton Manning's nephew would not be interested in his alma mater and would be more interested in his other uncle's alma mater. But then again, you know, his granddaddy's also an Ole Miss legend, and I get all of that. But still, Tennessee not being in here? What are we doing here? Like, if you told me that Arch Manning was going to Tennessee, I would say, yes, Kyle, you're on to something. But as you're telling me right now, I'm like, yeah, wherever he goes. Yeah. Alabama, again, making the playoff. Who knew it was going to be their year as we're talking about all the teams that made the college football playoff? Nah, I appreciate the inclusion of that one, and I appreciate Producer Cat for pulling these out. It's a fun segment. I'm glad we get to do it. This is a great topic, and I'm glad we picked it. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.